اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah, the Adab course titled The Islamic Strugglers, Intellectual Life, and the Forerunners Model is going to be delivered strictly in English, and I wish to remark at the beginning that the course is mainly going to be historical narration and at the same time statement of principles. So, though there might be sections that will be more of admonition, we are not likely to be quoting Quran and Hadith. Just because it is going to be more of history and more of statement of principles. We are starting with the objective. The objective of the 1441 leadership Adab course. For Al-Harakatul to do the needful in the course of the propagation and implementation of the message of Islam, one of the strategies the leadership must embark on is setting up of a publishing house to be saddled with the responsibility of overseeing the collection, authentication, translation, editing, and publication of the works and efforts of our forerunners in this struggle, who are supposed to be the model for us to emulate. Particular reference is hereby made to Sheikh Usman ibn Fudi, Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi, and Sultan Muhammad Bello, rahimahullah. These forerunners' peculiar approach to the Islamic work was the articulation of the understanding of the Islamic struggle in the course of developing the intellectual basis of the struggle. The intellectual basis of the struggle entails the spiritual hints required for the spiritual foundation and the radical operation strategies necessary to contend and combat the enemy's encounters. These were then systematically followed in the Haraka regular programs under the upright leadership of the Haraka. This is to mean that the title, The Islamic Strugglers' Intellectual Life, and the Forerunners Model, under the subjects Adab, during this year, 1441 Al-Harakatul leadership course, is targeted at examining just one of the three phases of the Islamic struggle. It pertains to the role of the intellectual orientation or basis, which enhances the spiritual foundation and the radical operation of the struggle. Yesterday, when the will of our late Amir was read to us here, we could pick from there the summary of our struggle, which is simply put as a struggle that has a spiritual foundation, an intellectual basis or orientation, and a radical operation. But this course, particularly this period, is to examine just one, which is the intellectual basis of the struggle. And we have just said the intellectual struggle, basis of the struggle, is supposed to provide the hints as per what are needed for the spiritual foundation itself. And it will also be the one that will embody the necessary radical operation strategies. So that means it is the intellectual arm that will house, that will contain all other aspects of the struggle. At the end of this engagement, this assignment we have just stated is to be carried out using our forerunners in the struggle as model. At the end of the course, it is hoped that this approach to the Islamic work will ensure effective and result-oriented dawah outreach or message delivery. That is the objective of our course. It is a call to do a thing the right way in order to attain the right result or outcome. And we have also stated here that since there is no success without the right leadership, this effort must necessarily be led by an upright leadership for the objective to be attained. That is the objective. Introduction to the course. The inspiration for embarking on the lofty assignment is located in the following revelations from the efforts of the executive members of Iqra Publishing House on the first 100 books written by the Sokoto Caliphate leaders. Precisely in 2004, the publishing house commenced publishing of the books of the two villages, that is Sheikh Usman bin Fudi, Sheikh Abdullah bin Fudi, and Sultan Muhammad Bello. The publisher's note contained remarks such as, "We were all products of an intellectual tradition rooted in Europe and the United States. Europe conquered Africa," that's supposed to be Africa, not African, "for one mission." And what is the mission? The manufacture of an African, that's supposed to be African, whose thoughts and intellectual pathfinder is located in Europe. One who is everything European except the color of his skin, quote and unquote. They also remark that the engine room of the product was a classroom via which Africans were indoctrinated to believe in the white man's insidious propaganda campaign designed to produce a Muslim who distanced himself from the religion and history. Moreover, the history he taught was history written by colonialists, interpreted by colonialists, and delivered as the gospel truth. In an attempt to protest, he falls into the trap of either Marxian skepticism of religion or Weberian secular rationality. Either way, he becomes a loser. He is trapped, according to an Indian philosopher, in a gilded void. It is against this background that the neglect of the writings of Sokoto Caliphate leaders among the Western educated elites should be understood. What the publisher of the works of these our foreigners are just trying to indicate in this introduction is that all of us are products of the Western system. Even our own history, we don't know them. It is they are the one that taught us the history, and the history they taught us is their own history. If they were to teach us our own history, they would distort it, because they had something, an aim. There's something they want to achieve. So you can see, specifically, when we wanted to protest, those of us who were products of the West, some people went for Marxian concept of religion. They say religion is the opium of the people. They are just using religion to cover people's face so that you can oppress them. That's what Karl Marx told us. Or at best, you go for the rationality. That is a definition of religion as a subset of culture, thereby making religion to be as insignificant as anything. If religion, a true religion is a subset, it's just a small part of some people's culture, not even everybody's culture. So that's what they are just trying to tell us. Now, the particular or the chosen model for this particular course is Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi. Before I go on, you can see that from the introduction they have told us that there is a publishing house, Ikra Publishing House, in Kaduna also. Is this Sokoto? They took up this assignment so as to revive our own history, which we did not know, since it is only the history of the West we knew. And they were particular about these people I call our forerunners. The publishing house is working on the three of them. Sheikh Usman ibn Fudi, Abdullah ibn Fudi, and Muhammad Bello. And they have told us that these people have written several books. We will see it in the course of our discussion. But they are going to pick about 100 of their books. And out of that 100 of their books, they have done, if not almost completed, the review and the translation and publication of the 100 books. You can see that some people are really working somewhere. So that they will, by that, revive our history, which I call our forerunners here, that's supposed to be our model. So that when we get to know what the history of our forerunners, who are our model, we'll be able to actually move in the right direction. Yesterday when the Amir's will was read here, you can see how he did a sort of outline of the Islamic struggle all over the world. You recall yesterday that he was not very particular about our own local example, which is this same people I'm talking about now. Now, because of the extent of the information available to him before he passed on. But further studies have shown that these people actually did extensive work that if we lay our hands on, it will go a very long way to help us to implement our agenda, the Islamic struggle agenda. In fact, when I was doing the research for this particular paper, I lay my hands on those. Now, some of those Ikra books are online, so I was able to get up to 30 out of 140 books they have written. And I downloaded the whole 30 and printed them. They are in my house. They are as high as from the floor to this chair. Just 30 books. We'll go into that. So, but in this particular course, our particular reference is Abdullah ibn Fudi, who was one of the three. He was a brother to Usman ibn Fudi, who was the leader of the jihad in the Bilad Sudan in 1804. May Allah be pleased with all of them. The specific example of approach to the course is that of the publishing house I have told us. So let me not repeat myself. Now we have some lessons to take from the life of Abdullah ibn Fudi himself. And I will just read and explain. The biography of Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi. Abdullah ibn Fudi, Abdullah ibn Muhammad ibn Usman ibn Musa Jogolo, popularly called Abdullah Fudio, and Abdullah Gwandu or Mai Gwandu, was born in the year 1181 AH. It's not there. Okay, sorry. That's why I'm reading. Sheikh Abdullah, under the guidance of his scholar parents, committed the Holy Quran to heart very early in life. He learned other branches of knowledge and jurisprudence from his elder brother Sheikh Usman ibn Fudi. On attaining the age of maturity, he listened to the study of Hadith along with his brother under the counsel of his uncle Sheikh Muhammad Raji in the year 1201 AH. He acquired the science of fiqh, usul fiqh, from Sheikh's uncle Mustafa. He enriched himself with Arabic grammar, owing to which he wrote several books in the field. He was a man with extraordinary memory, as it is often related that he committed the whole of Arabic dictionary to memory. Not the Quran, no. He has already memorized the Quran, but the whole Arabic dictionary. He became an embodiment of religious knowledge, especially in the science of Hadith and Quran exegesis. Consequently, he was at all times during the jihad period on the right side of his brother, Sheikh Usman ibn Fudi. He is an ascetic who renounced his world. Abdullah ibn Fudi was a gallant field marshal that was both a warrior with his sword as well as with the pen. Despite fighting on the battlefield, administering the western part of the Caliphate, Sheikh Abdullah Fudi or Fodio wrote over 140 books. He alone wrote over 140 books. I don't know how many his brother and others wrote, covering every topic and issue of concern to the Muslim Ummah. Although he wrote in the early 19th century, his commentaries are as contemporary today as when they were written over 200 years ago. What we are trying to say is that we need to, from what I have read, let's just derive some lessons from Abdullah ibn Fudi. Lessons from the biography of Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi. His parents were scholars who began the training for him. Unfortunately, most of us our parents were not scholars, except very few of us. But there is going to be the question of, are we equally scholars now to our own children? We are going to raise that question, but let's proceed. Now, he committed the whole Quran to memory very early in life. Again, most of us were not fortunate to have committed the Quran to memory, by virtue of the fact that most of our own parents were not scholars to have put us on that path as early as possible. But Alhamdulillah, we are challenged and encouraged by our present era to put our own children in the madrasa to memorize the Quran. And Alhamdulillah, some of them have become ufas. They have memorized the Quran, right? But we are going to look at the difference between these people we are talking about and our own children that are memorizing the Quran today. Because there are so many factors that is not making our own children that are memorizing the Quran today to be like them. Number one, the first thing about the Quran is that if it is memorized, it must be retained. And to retain it, there must be constant revision. It's difficult for our children to do now. Very, very difficult. Some genuinely justified. You can justify why it is difficult for them. Some, it's not genuine. You will see it as we proceed. He learned other branches of knowledge and jurisprudence from his brother, as we have learned, and some other scholars. He learned from his father, his brothers, and other scholars. So the question I want to raise to us is that if we were not fortunate to learn from our fathers, our children learning from us now, are we ourselves learning from other scholars or learning from ourselves? I'm raising questions. Are we? Other specific fields of study he excelled in include hadith, usul fiqh, Arabic grammar, tafsir Quran, and so on. We have also been told that he was a zahid, that is an ascetic Muslim, who truly renounced this world. Much of the lectures we have listened to here have told us the need for us to emphasize the material world. It's the abide way advice. It's for anybody who likes to take. The spiritual guide here this morning also told us so many things about it. Apart from the much of that lesson we have also learned from our late Amir. We all heard it. We know what that means and the importance of that. He was a gallant field marshal. He was a warrior. He was an administrator. He was an author who wrote books, over 140 books, as we have said. And I have just told us that I have downloaded 30 of those books. He wrote on the Muslim Ummah concerned issues. He wrote on Sarf, that's Arabic grammatical analysis, Islamic rulings. He wrote on politics, economics, moral, ethics, poems, commentary on hadith, on leadership, and so on and so forth. I'm mentioning this for us to know, maybe at the end of this course, which area any of us is going to make effort. If we cannot excel in all as he is now, at least we should be able to pick at least one. And the man said his book as contemporary as the modern books. His ideas. Let's go to slide 5. Next slide. No. Oh, good. Now I'm still talking on this slide. Now he used to recite 1/3 of the Holy Quran daily. It's contained there in this page. If you read through, I'm not going to read that. I just want to explain. So one of the reasons why our children are not like him is that it's difficult for our own children to sit down to read the Quran. You know, it's easy for somebody who has memorized the Quran to be able to read it as fast as to read to and talk every day. It means every 3 days he finishes the Quran. Every 3 days he finishes the Quran. And it was a routine for him. Plus so many other things he does. One child that has memorized the Quran, if I program him to read the Quran in a month, he will not finish it. The excuse may be that I'm going to school. Even when they are on break. I was making a jest when I came here with him since Wednesday. I said by Sunday or by today, Saturday, I want him to behave like he should have finished the Quran. But these are children that when you chase them, if you ask them, they will sleep. It's either they sleep or play away. It's very, very difficult for them. You know, this person was doing it even at an age younger than them. He was doing it consciously because he wanted to make an achievement. But our own children, they are being forced. So it's not as if they have the same zeal Abdullah ibn Fodi had. He was a dedicated servant throughout his lifetime. He's contained there. He was a disciplined, strict and law-abiding personality. Disciplined, strict and law-abiding. What of we? Simple rule. Simple rule. We devised this idea of sitting down on the chair, even right inside the mosque, because we wanted to catch everybody's attention, isn't it? But you will continue to witness from not only since yesterday, not only today and tomorrow, that some of us will find it difficult to sit on this chair. And it may not be established that some of those who do that have one peculiar health challenges or the other. It's just a question of indiscipline. Or some will be discussing outside when we are supposed to be seated. Or some will be sleeping when we are supposed to be listening to lecture. Indiscipline. If this level, we cannot be disciplined. You cannot imagine the level of discipline we are talking about this person. He possessed sound knowledge, writing and military prowess, poetry and ability to do dawah. A teacher of thousands of students. In fact, 750 of his companions were recorded in his Tartibu Ashab, one of his books. I'm not saying the audience of Sheikh Suran bin Fudi, who is the head, who is the Amir, who was the Amir. I'm saying Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi we are talking about. He had, and it's recorded that he had 750. They made reference to them as his companion because he was their teacher. And he was carrying all of them along. So we can derive lessons from there. He loved and declared the truth under any circumstances there. He played down the school of thought to which he belonged. Today, you can see how the whole world is confused. We should take lessons from this. So it did not really matter to him which of the school of thought he belonged. But you can see how some people are crazy about that now. Not only crazy about the school of thought, about so many factions of Islam, especially Salafi, and so on and so forth. They said, even though he belonged to the Qadiriya Sufi order, it did not really matter to him so much. He was the political thinker of the movement of his time. He's there, you can read it. He did not separate religion and politics or other issues, as Islam is the totality of life. Yesterday when we were discussing fiqh in the night, and people are saying, quoting so many of the scholars, I was making my own jest. I said the scholars of our own time, they can only endeavor to do ijtihad when it comes to ablution and salat. And it does not cost them anything to exclude jihad from their book of fiqh. Not to talk of even doing ijtihad on it. There are so many issues we are supposed to do ijtihad on. The worst of it is our own children. Our own children. I was reporting a case to Amir yesterday. Because I'm one of the members of the Shura committee on our youth. So I requested that I should be in their WhatsApp platform. The first day, their coordinator posted my number there. They were querying it. Somebody was saying they should remove it. I didn't talk. It was their scholar. It was their coordinator that told them they better keep silent. That is their father appointed to monitor them. So except you want to now dictate to your fathers what they should do and what they should not do. Sometimes they say they were misbehaving. Most of the time, we don't talk when we're in such. We don't talk, we don't post anything. We just read what we want to read. And most of the time, keep silent and leave them to continue to do whatever they like until when they are getting out of hand. They had done that in the past, and I sent a warning. One of them who did not know me, is not even one of their children, he said, "Who is this person?" So their coordinator wanted better keep silent. 3 days ago, they were discussing, on Wednesday, recently, they were discussing Christmas food from Christian or not. And it degenerated to, can we marry Christian? Somebody among them say, we can eat their food now. After all, the Quran says we can eat their food. They say, even during Christmas, they say yes. Because then another person say, okay, can we marry their wives? Can we marry them? He said yes, because the Quran says we can marry them. And they started bringing all sorts of rulings of contemporary scholars on that. When I was fed up of what I was reading, I just sent a message there that enough of that. So, and I said, I'm highly disappointed by you, our children. Some of them have had wives and giving birth to our children who are misbehaving like that. I said, I'm highly disappointed in you people. Of so many issues that are happening. One of them posted there that be concerned about what is happening to the Muslims in India. Instead of all this, whether we can eat the Christians' food on Christmas Day or not. So, thank God, it was since that day I sent my warning them. They have stopped that argument. The argument was so hot, I said, what is all this nonsense? So, this is the problem we have. And Sheikh warned against leaders making themselves inaccessible from their followers. Now, all that I'm saying so far is let's go to the course. The course sample. You can see it on the board while I render details of the course, of the content of the course. Now, the first one is the meaning of Islamic strugglers. Islamic struggle, which is the message, which is the same as Al-Harakatul, is the principle. Before I continue, please, I want all of us to be very, very studious and be research oriented. As leaders, we cannot afford to be an ordinary person. As leaders, we cannot afford to be ordinary. We should be studious, as I say. We should study very well, and we should do a lot of research. It is true that there has been a confusion about IMN, Islamic Movement in Nigeria, and the Islamic Movement, TIN. So, sometimes in 2017, when Amir sent some of us to one of the Conference of Islam in Nigeria, in Abeokuta. When we were going, I had cause to, that was the time we were trying to begin to upload some information on our website. As I'm talking, most of us don't know our website. And even if we know it, we don't visit it. And our expectation is that you should visit it and read what is there and now post challenge to us. Mallam is in charge. So I had to send this definition I'm about to give us about Islamic movement to him. It was when I was at that conference, somebody who is not a member of Al-Jama'ah, in his own paper, was making reference to that definition because he has visited the website. He's not a member of Al-Jama'ah. But some of us, if you ask us to define Islamic movement, now we say there is no known definition of Islamic movement. Because the only way there can be one is for us to consciously put in our own information there. That's the essence of the social media, online, social media. So we have one. Even if others refuse to define Islamic movement, we that we are doing it, we should be able to define it. We have one. And this is the definition that if you go, this thing I'm about to read, if you go to our website, you see this definition there. The Islamic movement, which is, the Islamic struggle, which is the same as Al-Harakatul, is the principle, formal and informal process and practice of organizing, encouraging, and engaging conscious Muslim du'at in conscious spiritual, intellectual, political, social, economical, moral, emotional, cultural, and physical efforts towards the ultimate goal of attaining goodly living in this world and Allah's pleasure in the hereafter. Quote and unquote. This is our own version of Islamic movement, definition of Islamic movement. The du'ats involved in this Islamic work are called the Islamic strugglers. That's the topic. And that's the first one, the meaning of Islamic strugglers. That's what I've just finished with. Now the next subheading is the intellectual life of a community. Isn't it? This pertains to the efforts and ability to derive knowledge, laws, rules, policies, and principles governing the life of the people in any given community. It is all the inclusive efforts and activities of designated arm of government or leadership of a community that have to do with law and policy making for the effective operation of the society. These life intellectual processes and purposes are often performed by both the legislative and judicial arms of government. This function further enhances and enables the executive arm to also effectively perform its role or function in the society. That is what we call the intellectual life of a community. The next one, the role of intellectual arm in provision of the theoretical framework of a society. While intellectual pursuit pertains to the relevant knowledge, laws, policies, and principles that govern a people's affairs, the term framework refers to the basic conceptual structure upon which a society is governed. Literally, framework implies the identification and categorization of processes or steps that constitute a complex task or mindset in order to render explicit the tacit and the implicit. What we are saying is that when we are talking about intellectual framework or theoretical framework, what we are talking about is that we are trying to lay a foundation, a sort of conceptual structure, concept upon which the activities of any group or any community is going to rest on. And I've said in a well-established government, this role is performed by the legislative arm and sometimes the judicial arm. It has to do with policy making that we use to run the society. So the theoretical framework, therefore, refers to the abstract or theory, which is a coherent statement or set of ideas that explains observed facts or phenomena, or which sets out the laws and the underlying principles or methods of a given technical skill or art. It is upon the intellectual framework that any practice is built. It is more or less the arrangement of support beams. Can we all see this hall, this mosque? Can you see the support beam, the support structure? I say the foundation inclusive. Where we are now, there is foundation. If you put the foundation plus all these beams and the pillars, if you put them in place, this building will be there. The only thing we will not see is the wall. And of course, this is part of the decking is part of it. So those things are called structure in a building, in an architectural drawing, or we call it structural plan, architectural drawing. And it represents and determines a building's general shape and size. I'm using that for us to appreciate what we call intellectual framework. I've taken us to the architectural field so that we can appreciate that. Now, the role of intellectual or theoretical framework of a society is therefore the design upon which a community or society is built and governed. Without it, there will be neither plan nor preparation for any functional act or art in any society. And you know that they say people who fail to plan obviously plan to fail. So for the building of a community not to fail, intellectual or theoretical framework is indeed sacrosanct. I hope we understand what I'm trying to say. Without the intellectual framework, there is nothing called any society. There is nothing called community. There is nothing called the Islamic movement. If we cannot, since even the existing society we are all in, it is because they have a theoretical framework upon which everything that is happening is placed. And that is what I simply mean by it is a plan. When I was talking about architectural structure, it is a plan. And they say people who fail to plan to fail. So in order for us not to fail, I think we have to lay our own foundation. Now, the next subheading is the Islamic intellectual framework. This is the ability of Muslims to study and articulate the teachings of Islam as contained in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ for application in all phases of life, spiritual and other private and public affairs such as socio-political, economic, business, legal, moral, cultural, emotional, etc. I hope we are getting the message. So this is what we have just said here is that our own intellectual framework is strictly derived from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. While that of the general society we have been talking about, it is some people who sit down somewhere to think of, and that is the idea of secular and Islam. That's the difference between secular and Islam. Anything that has to do with secular is the human reasoning minus that of God. And anything that has to do with Islam is the divine will minus that of human beings. So that is the difference between our own intellectual framework and just any other. While the source of the Muslims' intellectual and theoretical framework are the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it is expected that the Muslims study both sources, codify them, draw guidelines from them, and apply same to determine and decide their affairs. This justifies the need for a constitution to run an Islamic system. So from what we have said so far, it is not possible for us to have an Islamic government today and say we do not need a constitution, we need one. And how we derive it is what I have just said. You will derive it from the Quran and the Sunnah. It's just like a manual, something you want to work with. So that is the Islamic intellectual framework. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started the laying of the intellectual and theoretical framework of life by the revelation of the Quran. I'm trying to explain myself now. This process involved the angel Jibril alayhi salatu wasalam, created for this purpose. He conveyed the revealed message to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, while the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in turn rehearsed the divine message to his companions, to the Sahaba, who were meant to write down the message on the then available means of documentation. This process was further enhanced by the efforts of the Khulafa Rashidun, the rightly guided successors of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Specifically, the compilation of the Quran into the current Mus'haf was directed and supervised by the third Khalifa, that is the Prophet and Usman ibn Affan, on the earlier authorization of the first Khalifa Abu Bakr ibn Abu Quhafa, after a protracted persuasion of the first Khalifa by the second Khalifa Umar ibn Al-Harakatul. Did you get the message? The Mus'haf we have now, they say it's Usmanic edition, and it's the only one. We don't call it edition. We call it Mus'haf. That is the copy. It's the only copy. There is no other revised edition. It was during the time of Usman radiallahu anhu that it was compiled. But what he did that because there was an effort made by the first and the second Khalifa before him. It was right actually when you read the history of the compilation of the Quran, it was actually during the time of Abu Bakr. They were telling him that the Hufaz of the Quran are dying. It's better we compile this into a book. Abu Bakr, because of his fear, was entertaining the fear that let's not do what the Prophet has done. Like some people will say today, Abi. But the Sahabas understood themselves. He was just doing that out of fear of Allah. There are so many things that we do today, we are coming to that people will say the Prophet did not do, we should not do. Whereas it's sheer stupidity. While he was entertaining that fear, Umar radiallahu anhu, as you knew him, told him that we have to do that to safeguard the Quran. Because if eventually all those who memorize the Quran die, then there will be nothing to fall back to. It was this earlier effort that Usman radiallahu anhu worked on to eventually produce the present copy by calling for all the written revelations by the scribe of the Prophet himself, because when this thing was being revealed, when the Quran was being revealed, Zayd ibn Sabit and some others were instructed by the Prophet to be recording them down. That was how we harvest. That was how Umar and Usman radiallahu anhu harvested all those things. And I said they were written on the available means of documentation then. Some of them were written on the back of wood. bone, things that skin, and so on and so forth. Because there were no papers then. Where we are trying to produce a journal that will tell us more about documentation. But that's not, strictly it's not, I'm not talking about documentation, but it's just by the way. So, when all that had been done at the time of Usman, look at, you can see that the four of them, none of them did not have any contribution to the compilation of the Quran. And I said here that Ali, the fourth Khalifa, Ali Ibn Abu Talib, designed the vocalization of the Quran, a task which makes possible the reading of the Quran and other Arabic writings by non-Arabs and the Arabs alike. If not for the favor Allah bestowed on Ali, he was one who designed the vocalization of Arabic writings. So that's why it's possible for us to. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to distinguish between Ba, Ta, Sa, what do you call it? Yao, and so many letters that look alike. If those vocalizations were not there, apart from the dots, even the, what do you call it, harakat, huruf, the harakat, Fatiha, Kasra, Dama, and so on. If you know, those ones were not there initially. That's what I said, but we learned that he initiated the vocalization of the Arabic writings. And that's why it's possible for you and I, who are non-Arab, to be able to read the Quran today. It would have been very difficult. Now the Sahaba further enhanced the intellectual framework of the Muslim by documenting every detail of the Prophet's sayings, deeds, and his approval of the deeds of the Sahabas. The scholars among the Tabi'in, and other generations of the Muslims after them had also played the role of good pace setting in the development of the Muslims' intellectual framework and life. And these were documented in series of their writings or volumes of books. These people are mentioned. It is because they were not as lazy like us as us. That's why we have all that we are reading about them today. It is because of the efforts of the Sahabas that we are able to have the Quran and the Hadith. It is because of the efforts of the scholars that came after them that you and I know that series of tafsir of the Quran, commentaries on Hadith, and various books. We have just talked about Abdullah ibn Fodi. We are trying to, that's under reference here, that he wrote over 140 books. And if you go to check, you will discover that it's within just very few years, he wrote 140 books. Now, I said before, dwelling on the development of the intellectual framework for the Islamic struggle, there is the need for us to compare our mode of Islamic struggle with that of our forerunners in the struggle. That takes me to a subheading. It may not be there, but it is comparative analysis of our effort and that of our forerunners. I say, generally speaking, intellectual life or framework of any community is supposed to precede the people's action or practice. This is because it is the relevant knowledge or planning for the eventual practice of the people. The reality is that we are supposed to have inherited the intellectual framework or basis laid down by our predecessors. I say, but unfortunately, the generation that gave birth to us had both derailed and abdicated from the pristine path of the righteous forerunners. I'm not abusing our fathers. It is the history you and I know. Very, very recent. Very, very recent, except very few that you and I also know in our various communities. If you go to Ilorin, you just say except what Sheikh Adam Abdullahi Al-Ilori. I think among the scholars in Ilorin, he had the highest number of books. Scholars had different style of passing their messages. I'm not aware of the books authored by Sheikh Kamaldeen, but his works have been recorded and transmitted by his students to some of us. So go to any community and ask those who are supposed to be fathers to us. Only very few. Majority of them derailed. Not only derailed and abdicated. That is, they left this thing we're talking about, this intellectual work we're talking about. So that is why it's difficult for us to just inherit them. And that is taking me to the next level. And the next level is that this is why there is the need for us to revive the true intellectual basis of the Islamic struggle laid down by the righteous forerunners. Given the example of Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi, whose biography has been highlighted above, the following comparison is in order. So I want to compare just briefly. The Sheikh was pious, we have been told. He was a Zahid. He was committed to learning. He became a scholar of repute. He was a prolific writer who wrote Tafsir al-Quran, commentaries on Ahadith of the Prophet Usul Fiqh, Arabic grammar, Islamic rulings, politics, economics, ethics, poems, literatures, and so on. In fact, he was reported to have written over 140 books, as I've said, while we are marveled at why he had to write this much number of books. Are you not marveled? Are you not marveled? When I hid the thing up beside my bed, I was just wondering that somebody did this work. I have 30 of his books already downloaded. And it's because of our era. It was not easy those days to have access to some of this, but they are easy now for anybody who cares anyway. They are easy now. You can have access to them. So we are marveled. But let's ask ourselves these questions. We should ask ourselves the question that you and I, how many of these books, how many have we written of books? As we are seated now, all of us can ask ourselves the question, how many of us are authors of books? And how many books have you written? Including myself. Are we as also pious and scholarly as he was? How proficient and fluent are we in Quran and Arabic or any other language with which to write the books? I want to pause here. I'm sorry for what I want to say now, if anybody feels offended. I say, how proficient and fluent are we? If our fathers are not scholars, like Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi, but since we started this struggle, and we have been encouraging ourselves, let us be excellent. Our late Amir said, excellent is the hallmark of a Muslim. There was a day I was asked to go and deliver this lecture in Abuja. It was one that those people had it from him, Adam Yusuf. So they organized themselves, and something very early 90s that I should come and deliver lecture on that statement of Amir. And what is the statement? That excellence is the hallmark or is the trademark of a Muslim. Amir used to say whatever you do it excellently. Even if you are a wood splitter, Amir will say split it well. Just before his accident, I was in my vehicle driving him to somewhere in Ogidi. He said, Mallam, Jatto, I like your driving. This is what I've said. Anybody who wants to drive, whatever you want to do it well. So I'm coming back to us. Wallahi. What I want to say that I say, most of us will feel offended is that most of us don't know how to read the Quran. And we don't care. Is it because we are taught by our fathers who do not know Tajweed? Is it a crime to know Tajweed? It is true that those people are more pious than us, even though they didn't know Tajweed. But who says you should not be pious and also know Tajweed now? Who says we should not be pious like our fathers and at the same time also know Tajweed? Our scholars that have been talking to us since yesterday, somebody was saying it yesterday, I know among them, was saying that when you pronounce Arabic word, particularly the Quran, then sometimes the way you pronounce it will change the meaning. That is the essence of Tajweed. But lying, I say, we'll feel offended, but I'll say it. We have heard that we say the truth, no matter whoever's gone, us is gone. Have you? I'm telling you, majority of us, more than 90% of us, we don't know how to recite the Quran. And it is because we are contented with what we know. After all, idea is need, Abi. If you use idea is need to write book, people will just throw your book away. Idea is need is an English language, Abi. If you write it like that in a book, the moment somebody who cares about language reads it and say idea is need, the pen will just throw your book aside. That is why some of those who know me, Ustaz Gada, makes jest of me a lot, but I understand what he's talking about. He said my trouble is too much. Because if you bring anything to me, I'll fault it. I'll keep on faulting based on your construction, your grammar. One girl wrote a book in the University of Ilorin some years back. It's almost 10 years back now. She heard of me that I wrote one small pamphlet and that I should look at the work for edition. When she brought it, I did so many. Now there was no page I didn't tamper with. And she has published it. I mutilated, then I called her and said, look, you go and revise this book. You go and effect all these corrections and print another one. I know you're a student. I don't have money, but I can lead you to some people who can assist you so that you can come up with something better. She ran away. This trouble is too much, I can't do it. There was another one, a small girl, where I'm the chairman of the PTA. She wrote a book. Her parents maneuvered their way to KWRS. Then Dr. Morisala Awodu, they volunteered to sponsor the publishing of the book. They published it, made copies. In fact, I even gave that girl scholarship to university. Because secondary school child wrote a book. So that was why the KWRS boss decided to encourage her that way. But when it was during the launching that I got to know, as book, it is not everybody. So when I was given a copy, I took it, I went through, I said, well, this girl, you did well, you have tried. Then I called the two parents, the mother and the father, I said, this girl has tried though, but what is worth doing I've done is worth doing well. Despite this much support and popularity given to her by the state agency, I am going to do a review of the book. And I'll give it back to you, to God, to publish. They too, you know what they did? They even made sure that I didn't have the phone number of their daughter. Because I was conversing with the parents. Because they felt, your trouble is too much, John. So, but
it's not only Mallam together.
So it's not only that that's an outsider. Their trouble is too much, John. So, but it's good. Because what you write, what people read about you tells so much about who you are. So I digress from the Quran, Abi. Wallahi, most of us don't. Let's make effort. I'm throwing a very serious challenge to us. All of us, I'm not exempting anybody. Even though I know that some of you are my teachers in this regard, particularly Mallam and the two people here and some others. I know you are my teachers. I'm not still yet exempting anybody. That all of us can still do better than what we are doing now. Please, let us try. Because nobody will say it, but it's a shame if we are reading the Quran and it's full of error. Nobody will say it. Let everybody assess himself before others assess you. Let me run through before my time is off. Now, how much dawah are we doing? Those of us who are in the full-time work. If we say Sheikh Abdullah ibn Fudi, I don't know, I'm guessing that he must be a full-time worker to have had time to do this much he has done. He was. Now, those of us who are part-timer, I'm not exempting us, we can see too. Some of us can write books. I'm taking the challenge. And the first statement in my will that we are talking of yesterday is that I wrote it there that my children, immediately I die, they should take my will. When they read it, the first assignment is that they should go and search for all the books I have written. Because I'm a poor man and I've not been able to publish them. I've only published 2 out of many. I won't tell you how many I've written. That the first thing is that whatever, like Amir was saying yesterday, whatever, if I have anything after my demand, they should invest it in what? Completing and publishing my books. If they can't, if I don't have anything, they should help me as my children to publish my book. That's what I wrote there. Because what are we going to leave behind as our own contribution, for goodness sake? And if it is not documented, who knows? In fact, we are in serious trouble. That's why I've been discussing the matter Mallam Abraham raised yesterday about our late Amel. He has done, that was his own style of leadership. And by his own style of leadership, he was not somebody who could sit down like some of us to be writing. But he has produced so many works. And inshallah, when he was about to die, I visited him too at Adeole where he was then. He said, Mallam Jatto, now. He said, I have a very great task that I have not been able to accomplish. And I'm looking onto you people. Because if I don't survive this, if I survive this sickness, that is the next thing I'm going to do. And what it is documentation of our works. He said, if I fail, then I said, don't go too far. We have started doing them. And inshallah, we will accomplish that task. Where I'm putting it, though, since after his death, I wanted to make an attempt to publish his work. But I'm constrained again by finance. But in recent time, we have taken up the challenge as a body now, the leadership, that we must do all that it takes to combine some of this. That is the part of the work is what Mallam Abraham's committee has started with. He has a committee he's leading up. I'm sure he must have brought that he gave us yesterday out of his committee work. The leadership has given him some work. So I'm going to work closely with him to see how we can, apart from his will, those his writings on the guide, we will also do some other, harvest some of his lectures that may be available, possibly transcribe and now publish. They are very important because valuable things like that should not be left to go like that. So how much planning are we doing as a body? So do not ask me that what is the leadership doing about it, but I'm sure we are doing something. But you can still give us a push. Now let's go straight. I want to quickly say that as a body, we must do all that is possible to come up with a formidable process and processes and activities of the Haraka that will be well documented. And I want to raise the question, because some people will say, just like the Noah say, your trouble is too much. I am not satisfied with the level of our organization. I am not satisfied. Yes, we have so many programs. Maybe at the end of this lecture, you get the idea I'm trying to pass. How can we improve upon them so that we will not be talking all the time? And the talking, we can't see the talking in the community. If we keep on coming here every year like this, and we gather in the learning, and every place we gather for this our talk, we should answer ourselves the big question: what is the essence of this talk? The essence of the talk of the people at the review is that they documented their own and they were implementing it. We are going there. So let's go straight to the organization of the Islamic intellectual life. I'll finish inshallah before the time. The organization of the Islamic intellectual life. That is the segment we are in. This course aims at challenging and encouraging the participants to adapt and adopt the organization and strategies of our pious forerunners in the Haraka work. The following are the recommended format and approach for our purpose. So I'm coming to the practicality of my lecture now. A publishing house is recommended as a practical approach to be floated for this purpose. This publishing house should have executive director and other executive council members of the publishing house. The task this body is going to be engaged in is to develop the intellectual framework for the Islamic work. And the following are my suggestions. Number one, I think they are written there. They will engage in collation and codification of the Al-Harakatul ideas and ideals, collection, authentication, translation, editing, documentation, and publication of the works of and efforts of our forerunners, as well as our contemporary collective and selective works. What I'm saying is that we will do all this codification, collation, collection, authenticate what we get to be sure that they are not fabricated. We translate, if possible, from one language to the other. We do the edition, we do the compilation, we do the documentation, and then publish it into a concrete document. And we will be doing that in respect of our forerunners we are talking about. You can imagine if we have such a publishing house and we want to behave like the Ikra publishing house, we too can equally start doing the review of our forerunners that I'm talking about. Then the ones from among us and all these lectures we are doing here, somebody will be somewhere doing the collation and compilation. And I'm recommending that it should be a full-time work for such person that will be that competent to do that work. Number two, the person I'm recommending that there be the development of a training guide for the Haraka work. Contents of the training guide to consist of hints on the spiritual foundation and the radical operation strategies necessary to contend and combat the enemy's encounters during the confrontational stage of our struggle. You know, we are still far behind now. Unfortunately, as Ezekiel has group, we couldn't really understand what they are up to. We didn't, at the time, we couldn't understand what their aims and goals are. And that is why we cannot say much about that struggle, like Amil said yesterday. The only thing is that we are aware that whether they had properly passed through the necessary stages to pass through, we know that at one time or the other they got to the confrontational stage with the secular status quo and they clash. What I'm saying is that we should have a training guide that will prepare us to be able to contend and combat that stage when we get there. That is what Shiore did not have. That's why his struggle is as it is. Anyway, those of us who are Haraka members know that Shiore is just, by the way, a product of the secular gimmicks. I call it gimmick. It's gimmick because if we are the ones that have done that, it would have been a different story. You can see that after the noise, they have released him, isn't it? It's because it's part of the secular game. And his fathers, those who are sending him outside the country, they are there to support him. But we don't need the support of anybody. We only need the support of Allah. So, but we should still prepare ourselves ahead of that stage. Now, number 3, we should, some aspects of the training guide, I've just talked about training guide. Some aspects of the training guide will include the following that I think we should give attention to. Number 1, spiritual guide or compilation of peculiar Azkar book and spiritual training schemes. 2, Nikah counseling training guide or book based on the available terms of reference of the committee and related issues. We have already set up a Nikah counseling committee. They can use the terms of reference given to them as a template to begin to develop the guide for that particular unit. 3, Al-Harakatul Islamiyah Youth Training Guide to be evolved from, also to be evolved from the coordinators, terms of reference, and other relevant sources. I think their representatives are here, so they too can use the template of the terms of reference given to them to begin to develop the guide for our use, and draw from many other relevant sources, as I've said. Books on Aqidah, Ibadah, Muamala, Adab al-Muasharat, and Akhlaq should be written. Some of us have started work on that. Books on Jihad, in the light of the contemporary understanding and challenges, should be embarked upon. Periodicals, journals, and books on Islamic sciences and the contemporary issues in the Muslim world should be embarked on. This number 6, I said, the abandoned Al-Harakatul Islamiyah publications such as the Path, later the Guide, At-Tariq in Arabic, and Ujuan in Yoruba, Al-Harakatul Islamiyah Institute of Thought publications, the annual Course Day commemoration articles and other occasional releases, the view of Al-Harakatul Islamiyah activities, events and people such as annual leadership conferences, training programs and courses, Ijtima, Tabligh, etc. all fall under this category of publication. So number 3 now. Number 3 is the systematic implementation of the training guide. That's another document I'm recommending that we should embark on. The training guide as the intellectual or theoretical framework of the struggle are systematically to be implemented via the Haraka regular programs. What I'm saying is that after getting those documents, then we'll now begin to use them to implement our programs. That's what I'm saying. The Haraka ideas are also to be implemented subconsciously by the masses. When we write books, the masses will subconsciously, when they read our books, also imbibe our idea. That's what I'm saying. Then number 7 now. Still under the training guide. There should be a Hafla manual to spell out how we go about our other ceremonies aside from Nikah. Nikah we have taken care of the Nikah by setting up a committee. I'm saying that all other Hafla, Akiko, and so on and so forth, Akiko, Wolima, and so on and so forth, we should write a manual called Hafla manual to take care of that. Then 8. The secular system was the secular system used the existing institutions, especially educational institutions, as engine room for the spread of secular ideology and civilization. The Haraka must equally illam taf'aluhu takun fitnatun fil ardi wa fasadun kabir. Are you going with me? I said the secular system have consciously used the educational system as the engine room of spreading their ideology and civilization. And I'm saying that the Haraka must equally not fail to, nor compromise the use of its existing institutions as engine room for the spread and implementation of the Islamic ideology and civilization. This is best done via Al-Harakatul Islamiyah, Islamic perspective curriculum in our educational institutions. Work is being done on that. On a concluding note, the foregoing approach to our dawah is considered more practical oriented as opposed to the current theoretical talks without target of practice of our talks, what more of the impact of our struggle in the society. Allahu a'lam. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Subhanaka allahumma wa bihamdika.